What's going on out there, fellow Tightwads, fellow Cal Athletics fans? Hope everybody has been doing good out there this holiday season. Welcome to this special edition broadcast of the Bear Raid, as of course we get set to bring you the Bear Raid's 2025 Cal football season in review show. Good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are tuning in from for this edition of the show. It is your 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad Hill, Keith Salminen, coming at you, of course, from Dub 6 Studios, located in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Always a great weekend down here. Always good to be out here with everybody. Hope everybody's been doing good out there. And got about, typical show coming your way here as, of course, me and the guys get ready to recap the 2025 Cal football season. I am not alone for this one. Unfortunately, Donnie Knucklehead Hudson was a last-minute cancellation, but I do have other individuals here to round out things with this. Joined, of course, for this edition of the show, let's go ahead and start out with my co-host that is here in the studio with me at the moment, my predecessor, the 29th and emeritus governor of Tightwad Hill. That, of course, is none other than Tad Dellinger III. Taddy, how have you been doing, my brother?
Swell. Season greetings, everybody. Go Bears.
And, of course, joining us on the phone is a voice that is familiar to many of you who might have watched A's Fan Radio in the past, and an individual, of course, who sat up on Tightwad Hill many years before I went up there. He, of course, alongside me, formed what became known as the dynamic duo over on A's Fan Radio, the main man, the boss man. Boss, what's going on, man? It's a great opportunity for once again to have the dynamic duo reunite in the post-A's Fan Radio era.
Oh, man, all good. To celebrate a birthday, you got the holidays, man, and I guess sports is in full swing as usual, man, so I'm all good. I'm happy to be here,
Definitely great to be with you, my brother, and it's always great whenever you and I can tag team and do stuff like we used to back in the day. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, got a whole bunch of stuff to come at you here on this 2025 season in review of the Cal football program. I almost said the Cal athletic program for some damn reason. Definitely got a lot to talk about. Take a look back at how the season played out for your California Golden Bears football program. A look ahead to what Cal football has on tap in 2026, and of course a few other things that we got to touch bases with before we wrap up and get all done here with that. On that note, let's obviously go ahead and we will begin the discussion here on this afternoon's broadcast by obviously taking a look back at what your California Golden Bears ended up doing during the 2025 football season. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and let's share our thoughts on what some of our expectations were. I guess I'll go ahead and start things up with that while I get the schedule loaded up here on my phone. It was a season where, there was kind of some optimism about the team, still some questions about things. From my standpoint, looking at things with how they looked out early on the schedule, and many of y'all that chit-chat and saw me in person heard my thoughts on this. It was a year that I really thought, looking at things in the early going, I actually only thought we'd only be a one-loss, maybe two-loss team, because when I was looking at things on the schedule, I saw a whole bunch of games that looked definitely playable and winnable to me. The one that I was, kind of worried about on the initial onset was SMU, but that's just because of how SMU has been in the last couple of years. Taddy, what were your expectations going into this 2025 season?
My expectations were 9-3, 8-4. That would have been a successful season for the Bears.
Boss, what were your expectations for Cal football going into this past season?
I mean, I had them around the 8 or 9 win plateau thing. I was not a big Wilcox guy. I think he's a nice guy, good guy. People liked him all around the campus, but I thought 8 or 9 wins, in the ACC, I thought they'd be improved, but that comes with a grain of salt because the Tedford years, we got used to being, having 10-win seasons and stuff and having multiple guys be sent to the pros, though. So, kind of tough.
On that note, it's one thing to obviously sit there, dream, and hope and see what your beloved college football team would end up doing. As we all know, of course, everything is ultimately decided in those 60 minutes between the lines on the gridiron. So on that note, let's go ahead and take a look back at how things played out for your California Golden Bears in 2025. We're going to go ahead and for this little breakdown of the past season, recap scores 4 games at a time, and then share our individual thoughts at that point on how things played out. Let's go ahead and rewind the clock back to August the 30th, when the season kicked off with the first 4 games of the year, non-conference games, of course. August the 30th saw your California Golden Bears start off on the road against an old-time familiar foe from their Pac-8/Pac-10/Pac-12 days in the form of the Oregon State Beavers. Cal winning that contest by a resounding final score of 34-15. Following week on September the 6th, Cal would play their first home game of the year at California Memorial Stadium, hosting Texas Southern. And, of course, Cal would end up blowing out Texas Southern in that contest by a final score of 35-3. Game number 3 was a home game on September the 13th in Berkeley, California, between your California Golden Bears and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. A little bit of a back-and-forth battle. Cal would, of course, win that contest by a final score of 27-14. September the 20th would be the first, what I guess some of us would consider a little bit of an enigma and what may have ended up setting the tone for the rest of the season. Contest on the road at Snapdragon Stadium that was, of course, built in the old parking lot of Qualcomm Stadium down there in San Diego when Cal would finish off their non-conference schedule at San Diego State. A game that many of us thought that Cal should have easily have won. Ended up not being the case as the Aztecs handed us a 34-0 loss in that contest, with, of course, Cal closing out the non-ACC portion of the schedule with a record of 3-1. Taddy, we'll go to you first for your thoughts on how the non-conference portion of the schedule played out.
Strongly expected, but we should have gotten the 4 wins. There's no excuse. It was just typical inconsistency with Wilcox.
Bauce, your thoughts on the non-conference portion of the 2025 schedule?
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised for them to go up there to Oregon State, man, and you get the win. Sometimes that's kind of been a tough place. Just playing that school has been tough for Cal over the last 2 decades or what have you. But SGP, him being a freshman, he was impressive in that game. And you're thinking, okay, Cal might be a little bit better. And then, obviously they were going to beat on, Texas Southern or whatever. But I felt really good about things when they beat Minnesota. Minnesota, what is that, PJ Fleck or whatever his name is, Fleck, whoever that head coach is there. He runs a strong program. They're tough built, run the ball, play tough defense type team. And Cal was just obviously the better team in that game. So you seeing Cal be 3-0, you're feeling good, and you play, another in-state team, San Diego State, and you absolutely shit the bed. It was mind-boggling to me, and then it kind of took me back to the place of this is a Wilcox-led team, and these kind of things happen. Focus just cannot be kept. Even when things are going good, there's always something. I mean, I go back to the Miami game last year. Going so great, and it just falls to shit.
I definitely, for the most part, was impressed with how things did play out in the non-conference portion of the schedule. I kind of feel like that we could have maybe put a little bit more up on the board against Minnesota, but the Golden Gophers have been a program that have been kind of pretty consistent the last several years and pretty much have played a lot of their opponents pretty well. That San Diego State game, though, I'm not going to lie, that shit pissed me the fuck off. And myself, Tad, Donnie, everybody that was at the Kingfish for that game that night were just staggering around that thing post-game like, what the fuck happened here? But what's the saying we, of course, came up with this year? Cal football, nothing's easy. That's the case that it always seems to be with Cal football. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next 4 games here on the docket before we share thoughts on things. September the 27th saw Cal begin the ACC portion of their schedule with a road game that took place in Chestnut Hill against Boston College. Back and forth contest, and of course, I feel like Cal should have won by a lot more than they did. And again, another one of those situations of what we ultimately saw play out over the course of the 2025 season. Cal would go on to beat Boston College by a final score of 28-24. They came back to Berkeley on October the 4th to host Duke up there in Strawberry Canyon. Another game that many of us thought would be a winnable contest for your Golden Bears. When it was all said and done, though, Cal would be on the side of a 45-21 L in Strawberry Canyon that afternoon. October the 17th, a Friday evening contest up there in Strawberry Canyon as, of course, Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels came to town. Those of us, of course, that used to be fans of a certain NFL team that we refused to call by their old name because they abandoned Oakland and went to Vegas. Of course, hoping to see Bill Belichick get his fucking clock cleaned in that one. That ended up being a back-and-forth contest, which shocked a lot of us because of how North Carolina played going into that game and the way they played out the rest of the way. Cal, of course, would end up getting the victory, though, in that one by the chinny chin chin, hair of their nuts, whatever you want to call it. Close battle, though, that Cal ended up winning by a final score of 21-18. October the 24th, definitely a game that we should have won. Of course, ended up not being the case. A 2-overtime loss at Virginia Tech that Cal ultimately lost by a final score of 42-34 in double overtime. Taddy, let's go ahead and go with you for your thoughts on that 4-game stretch for your California Golden Bears football program.
Just inconsistency, and there was winnable games, and Will Cox wasn't bold enough against Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech was one of those games. And then against Duke, they made Duke Blue Devils made adjustments, and the Cal Bears didn't make adjustments.
Bauce, your thoughts on that 4-game stretch?
I'm with you on that, Tad. It's just consistently inconsistent with Justin Wilcox. It's been like that since he's came on with Cal. Nice guy, but he's not a head coach. He's a defensive coordinator, and with Cal, the Cal defense was never really that stout. It was inconsistent. There goes that key word again. But, the game I look at, because I was very happy to see Boston College, but to come back with your fan base excited, being 4-1, and to actually be leading that game, if I remember, against Duke, and all of a sudden just shitting the bed was just unacceptable. It was just reminders of where this program is and where it needs to go if they're going to want field stands and people to be excited again in East Bay. Because it was just ridiculous. It was, I think, 21-7. The next thing you know, like, wait a minute. Why are you down all of a sudden 17 points at home? And it happened just boom, right before the first half, and then the second half, it was just, what does it say? Shit rolls down the hill when it rains, it falls. That was the epitome, and I'm thinking on that Saturday, because I went to tailgate with our good friend Robert Ponte. I was like, let me go check him out. I had stuff to go do. And I'm like watching this game, and I'm saying to myself, this is going to change the course of the season. A bigger bowl game that this team possibly could be having, or even hell, if you look at it, playing in the ACC title game, because Duke played in the ACC title game. Having that opportunity, is now going to slip through your fingers, and you saw it. I mean, the North Carolina game was the most embarrassing game of all, because really they should have lost that game. The Duke fumbling the ball at the goal line. I don't know what to make of it. And the Virginia Tech game, you're winning, it's looking good. You're on a Friday night. Everything is looking perfect, and you just can't close the deal. You just can't. So from being 4-1 to now being 4-3, and your season before looked like a for sure bowl game, now all of a sudden it's looking like, are we even going to make a bowl? So I was very uninspired, man, by watching this shit go on. And it's just same old Cal. When is it going to change?
Definitely saw the trend that would play out the rest of the way in 2025 go down in that one, and definitely the one thing that pissed me off a lot about just not just that stretch, but how things would go ultimately the rest of the year, where you would have so many times where Cal would jump out to 2, 3, sometimes even 4-score leads, and they would just sit there and allow their opponents to come back into contests. And even over the games that they won during this next 4-game stretch that we're going to look into, that was pretty much the case that ended up happening. November the 1st, they, of course, stayed in Berkeley after that loss in double overtime, or assuming that was a road trip that was at Virginia Tech for that double overtime game. November the 1st, they came back to Berkeley. for a contest against Tad's original college alma mater of the University of Virginia, which they ended up losing by a final score of 31-21. November the 8th saw a road trip out to Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville at the time was ranked 14th. It was a contest that ultimately had to be decided in overtime, and shockingly, Cal actually did end up winning that contest in OT by a final score of 29-6. Following that, they had a bye week. We're off for 2 weeks. Big game going down on November the 22nd at Stanford against Stanford. Again, situation where early looked like Cal was going to have control of things, and then Stanford pulled the rug mat out from under them and beat them by a final score of 31-10. That's, of course, what ultimately led to Justin Wilcox, or as Tad likes to call him at this point now, Wilcox sucks cock, getting fired from the program. Closing out the season, of course, on November the 29th at home against SMU, which originally was the one game that I was concerned with heading into the season, and a game that, I'm not going to lie, I feel like many of us thought that was probably going to not go in Cal's favor when we went up to the Hill. Shockingly, though, Cal winning that contest by a final score of 38-35 to close out the regular season with a record of 7-5, and, of course, being bowl eligible. Taddy, we'll go to you first for that final 4-game stretch of the 2025 season.
Okay, being a Cavalier alum, I've been associated with Cal football for more than over 30 years, so it's like I really wanted that game. Plus the fact that, okay, then in the big game, I just thought, man, Stanford's a 3-7 team. I mean, Cal is a lot more talented. The Bears should have won that game. It's like you had 2 weeks to prepare. What the fuck? More inconsistency with Wilcox. And then, okay, SMU, I always thought that, we'd be able to pull out another surprise game, but that was after Wilcox was fired.
Yeah, it's basically the only fun part about that damn big game at Stanford was the whole going over there for the tailgate aspect, the side of things. Yeah. Bauce, your thoughts on that final 4-game stretch heading into the bowl game for your California Golden Bears?
Oh, man, well, I was at the Virginia game, and you can see Cal was right there, but anytime they got close, Virginia would do a long drive. Even if they didn't score, that was my problem with that game. Even when they didn't score, things kept getting extended and time was ticking. Cal had opportunities in that game. The guys dropping the ball, or even SGP, and I'm not going to knock him because he's a freshman, missing guys that were open or just throwing it a little tad under or overthrowing them. That's the consistency thing that he's going to have to get as a quarterback as he matures on with this program, and thank God he's staying. But that is going to have to be definitely improved upon if we want to feel better, by this time of year next year. I'm just really serious. The Louisville game, I actually, Bauce is a degenerate gambler. I actually bet on Cal to actually cover because it was like a 14, 15-point spread, at least the points. I should have took the money line. But I wasn't surprised that they were going to play well in that game. Louisville, team that has some offensive prowess, but they're an inconsistent team as well. Wasn't surprised or shocking. I knew some good people that are out there in Cal. They told me Louisville is actually a cool city. And with us being so-called liberals out here, they said Louisville is actually kind of our speed. That's shocking. I'd like to go check it out. But, the Stanford game, I was in Tahoe watching it, pissed off at the bar over there at, what is that shit? It's Caesars now, whatever the hell it's called. Just watching it, and I just saw the bullshit, and it just kept bleeding and bleeding and bleeding until they just bled out. They didn't even give any effort in the second half. And while I was getting upset, and while Bauce had like his 6th beer of the fucking game, Bauce is like, you know what? Fuck it. This is probably the best thing that's happening because Ron Rivera and the alumni are not going to take this. In this new era of NIL and people getting the bounce left and right early, SGP is your most valuable player in the program. He is a lovable guy. He's got a good attitude. He has some talent. You want to make sure you keep him. You get this motherfucker Wilcox out of here. So that is the only silver lining, Keith, as you just said, is to get this motherfucker out of here, though. Please. And then the SMU game, thank God they won that, because we probably going to have a shit.com bowl or a worse bowl than ever before that nobody's really going to goddamn watch. And they were able to go pull out something out of their ass against a ranked team. So there's a couple of ranked teams that they beat on the year, which I guess is positive. But in that game, even in itself, Cal does the same old things to almost blow the game. You know what I'm saying? They stay doing it. They're able to score, later on in the game or whatever. And that guy, what's his name? I can't think of the kicker's name, had a missed field goal, thank God. But it's the same old. You cannot close the door. There was a few opportunities in that game when they were up 10. They could have went up 17 and really just, put that team on its heels. And they couldn't put SMU on the heels. I mean, SMU just came off of I think a couple of weeks earlier, they had beat just early in that month, they had beat Miami in an upset game at home. So I mean, there's teams with some talent that you've played and that you've beaten or that you should have beat, especially a Virginia Tech game, which is just crazy. So Cal does have the talent, but there's a leadership void in that program. And frankly, let's just be truthful. Ever since Tedford left, which is goddamn 17, 18, I don't know how many years ago it is, at least 15 years ago, there's still a void left in that goddamn program. So I was happy they won, but part of me is just like, okay, now what? Now what? What's going to happen in the future? Who's going to be the coach of this thing and turn this fucking shit show around? Because it's a shit show. Cal, in my opinion, we are in California. You have so much talent from Sacramento all the way down to San Diego. Why are these great players going to Washington? They're going to Texas. They're going to Ohio State. You have got to get money into the program like Stanford did with that one nerd that played in fucking 60s that dropped $50 million in. All these people who've made strides in the technology world, the lawyer and attorneys world, whatever the fuck, all come from that university. We need some people to donate money because this team should be winning more than 7 games in a year. This team should be getting double digits consistently, constantly, because Stanford is going to make their move to go get better. That's why they pump money. That's the name of the game now in the NCAA when it comes to football. You guys better get in line, Rich. This shit is bullshit. I should not see every year being happy to go to the LA Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl. Get it together right now. Right now. This new coach you're gonna have coming in, you guys better be in that transfer portal. Get you a big time receiver. Something. Because you should be looking better than a Hawaii Bowl. Go ahead. I'm sorry, guys. I was getting on to the moment. My bad.
It's all good, boss. No worries. I know better than anybody that you sometimes get a little ahead of yourself when we come into talking on things. Speaking of which, boss kind of already alluded to it. Cal with the 7-5 record qualifying for a bowl game. They would end up going to the Sheraton Hawaii Bowl, first time that they have appeared in the Hawaii Bowl, taking on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, who were making their 11th Hawaii Bowl appearance over there in Honolulu, Hawaii. Clarence T.C. Chang Athletics Complex is where they're playing at right now because the Aloha Bowl is pretty much derelict, abandoned at this point, eventually going to get torn down and replaced at some point. Cal jumped out to a 21-10 lead going into halftime in this one, but again, the same problem that pretty much plagued them the whole year with jumping out to those 3-score leads or more would come back to bite them in the ass, and Cal would unfortunately end up dropping the Hawaii Bowl in the final minutes, losing by a final score of 31-35. With that bowl game loss, of course, Cal would finish off the season with an overall record of 7-6. Taddy, will go to you first for your thoughts on how things went down in the Hawaii Bowl.
Well, when they fell behind, they did score, but they first time around they kicked the field goal. You couldn't kick a field goal. You had a short yardage situation where you should have gambled and went for it on short yardage. Then you do score a touchdown, but at the same time, it's like you guys need to play defense. What the fuck? The secondary was just like looking at the receiver. There was 2 guys back there. Somebody should have made a play on the ball.
Boss, your thoughts on the Hawaii Bowl?
Pat, you're right, man. Dude, I'm right with you. That when it was it 31-28? Was it Hezekiah Massey's or whatever? And he's gonna have a chance to play in the pros, but he played like dog shit the entire game. That was the worst play of all. but he did many of terrible plays, missing tackles, getting just beat. I'm like, where was this guy at all season? This guy didn't play like this. This guy just shows up and does absolutely nothing. You know what that shows me? That shows me that Cal was not goddamn focused, man, going out there, being out there in Honolulu. And shout out to Hawaii. I mean, I'm happy for them because they're going to get the Aloha Bowl. I think they're going to be building an entertainment district like all these sports people do. So hopefully that can kind of spruce up that program. But this team here was not on Cal's level. When Cal was up 21 to skunk on them, they were killing them. You know how you guys do in Madden. When it comes 21 to nothing, he supposed to pass the sticks. Well, Cal just decided to take their foot off the gas. The defense did nothing. There was no pressure on the quarterback. This was absolutely garbage. I believe they kept talking about it. What's the guy's name? I forgot. He had Balaj or whatever the hell his name was, but he played against SGP. So, it's a rivalry thing. SGP's trying to do his thing, but it seems like everybody else is just disinterested after it was 21 to nothing. They're just, you know what? I can't wait to go get back on the flight, go spend Christmas with my family, get back to the Bay Area, whatever, man. It was a shit show, total shit show, and you go 7-6. I just pray to God that anybody who entered the transfer portal was not fearful coming to Cal looking at that shit, because that there will make somebody, hey, I don't want to go there. We have these guys failing and just sucking like this against Hawaii. Like, you're supposed to knock Hawaii out the box for the whole game. You don't take your foot off the gas, but that's the state of the program right now, fellas. That's the state of the program.
Cal football, nothing's easy, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I got to fully agree with that. I was, riding high, when we were up 21-0 at that, at one point. Still felt like that we were going to be in it and walk away with it when we were up 21-10. But just, again, same problems that have hit this team the whole year. The inconsistency, taking your foot off the gas on the offensive side, allowing the other team's offense to just walk right back into things, and just the defense looking like by the end of the game it was gas. It's just, I don't know, man, just a whole lot of stuff that obviously the program is going to need to end up improving on going into the next season. On that note, let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of the final stat leaders for your Golden Bears at the end of the 2025 season. Starting off on the offensive side of things, your leading rusher for the California Golden Bears in 2025 ended up being Raphael Kendrick. Leading passer, of course, was Saga, JKS. Saga is what, of course, Donnie Knucklehead Hudson is calling him going into the 2025 season. Leading receiver was, of course, Jacob DeJesus, an individual that obviously, even though he's, I believe he's already technically graduated, might be looking to try to get another year of eligibility. Definitely a guy I love to see kept around on the team. Defensive-wise, it was the same issue that you've had with this program for a lot of years, where obviously you had a lot of standouts on the team like Evolve and a couple other guys that were All-Americans and all that, but just, still even with that, defense ultimately being gassed out and whatnot. And I guess we can also have that segue into who stood out to the three of us here in 2025. I guess I'll go ahead and I'll start out on who stood out to us on my end of things. For me, the guy that stood out to me the most would have been Raphael, our running back. And for me, that was because I had concerns coming into this season with Jaden Ott transferring that the running game might have had some issues, but should have known better, as was pointed out to me in Taddy's. We're always known for finding diamonds in the rough, it seems, when it comes to the running back side of things. And Raphael definitely stepped up and ended up having a better season than Jaden Ott did. Jaden Ott ended up not doing a damn thing over there in Oklahoma, where he transferred through this year. So, definitely love the fact that he stepped it up on the running back side of things. Taddy, who stood out to you this season?
Sagapalooza, he stood out as a raw freshman, true freshman quarterback. He had a good season considering, what he had to deal with.
Bauce, who stood out to you this season for the California Golden Bears?
Oh, man. Just a few people just kind of stood out to me. I got to say, I love the linebacker. What's his name? Chad Uliave. I like him. He's a junior, and I don't think he's bouncing, but I would like, hopefully he can be back. He doesn't jump in no transfer portal like a lot of these schools are about to be doing. Trust me. After this week, after these people feel they've had their New Year's resolutions or whatever the hell, let's hope we don't have no bullshit happen. But I also like Raphael. He did pretty well. Had 13 touchdowns, I believe. So that's a guy that has a nose for the end zone. Let's hope he can improve on that next year. SGP, obviously, that goes without saying. I like what Jesus did for being 5'7". He was really, really productive. But going forward, for Cal to ever be elite, there's gonna have to be a guy 6'2", 6'3", in between that 210 and 220 pound range that's gonna be getting calls from people at the next level. We need guys that are gonna be able to play on Sundays in the skill positions. We used to have that. It hasn't been like that in a long time. So, hopefully that changes. I also like what's the name? T.J. Bush Jr. I thought, he showed some promise. He has another year. I think he had 5.5 sacks. Hopefully, you can push a guy like that up to 9 or 10 sacks with this new coaching staff coming in. So, there's a few guys that did show something. As much as we do complain, Cal always has some talent that shows promise. Hopefully, we can get some guys in next year that can basically accentuate some of these guys who I just named can actually raise their game as well. But anyhow, guys, I'm in Paw boss mode. The grandkids just came over, so I got to sign out.
Boss.
Boss, go ahead and get your final thought, and then real quick if you got time to.
But there's this final thought, and I'm going to stay on the Cal Bears. Sports is changing, everybody. College sports has changed. This NIL thing is serious. People need to be banding together. You rich alum, you guys, all that endowment, all these other big ass fancy words that I don't know. You guys are gonna have to put your resources together so we can keep players and attract players. This is where it's at, because eventually college football is gonna do away with these conferences, or the Pac-12 is gonna come back. But they're going to figure out a way how to chop some of this NIL stuff, because Ohio State and USC's and a lot of the Penn State's, the huger programs, they're just going to get all the top pick of the litter, transfer portal or not, though. I coach kids in basketball who also play football, and some of them are going to be going next year and the year after on major D1 platforms. And this is what they said to me, and this is the word around town what a lot of kids that are getting recruited are saying. They're going to play someplace for 2 years, hop in the transfer portal, and see how much of a big of a bag they can get. That's the reality where we're at in sports. It's not good. I don't like it. But what's going to change? Until something changes, and it will be probably another 4 or 5 years, Cal's going to have to compete in these next 4 or 5 years. They're going to have to do something. You need better linemen. You need more playmakers. You need nasty guys on defense. You're going to have to pay. You have to pay for great teachers at Cal, right? Well, pay for the goddamn players, man, that can get this thing going and get this university back cracking again. Anyhow, Happy New Year, everybody. I love y'all. Y'all take care.
Boss man, thank you for joining us for this 2025 season in review for Cal football. It is always good hearing from you, and definitely look forward to having you back on a future show. Let me go and cut you loose now so you can go spend time with the Boss grandkids. Take care, man. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Taddy, and of course, myself continuing on here the rest of the way out. And, to some extent, I do agree with Boss. And you've heard me talk about it, and it's something Boss and I have been talking about for a couple of years, and we even mentioned it the last couple of years we were doing A's Fan Radio, that, me and him do feel like possibly within the next 5 or 10 years, unless you have some things change, that me and him are not going to be surprised if the conferences ultimately do end up going away and you just have a super league or, things broken down because of how the teams are lined up around the country and stuff. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that all plays out in the future.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, on that note, let's go ahead and continue on down the road here. We still got a couple more topics we need to touch bases on before we wrap up this 2025 season in review show for your California Golden Bears football program. Next subject we're going to touch bases on is obviously, what does Cal football have on tap in 2026? The opponents are known. Just the dates are only known for the non-conference portion of the schedule, so we'll go ahead and start off first with that. Your California Golden Bears in 2026 are going to start off the year at home on September the 5th against a familiar opponent and a team that, of course, used to be a longtime rival of your California Golden Bears going back to the old Pac-8/Pac-10/Pac-12 days. That, of course, would be the UCLA Bruins, or, of course, as we like to call them on Tightwad Hill, the UCLA Dickless Bears, since they stole our fight song, stole our colors, and stole our mascot. Cal will open up the season at home against the Dickless Bears on September the 5th. That will also be the first of 4 games over the course of the next 4 years between 2026 and 2029, where Cal and UCLA will rotate on and off against playing each other. Next year, of course, at Cal, 2027 at UCLA, 2028 back here in Berkeley, and, of course, 2029 back down at UCLA. September the 19th, is when Wagner is scheduled to come in and take on your California Golden Bears at California Memorial Stadium. The final non-conference game will be on October the 3rd, which is a Saturday at UNLV down at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. There originally was a game scheduled for September the 12th at BYU because Cal had it set up for a 1-1 matchup with BYU. That ultimately got canceled, though, of course, because of the fact that the ACC is changing over to a 9-game conference format. Well, I think with the exception, I think like 4 or 5 teams are still going to be playing the 8-game format because of it being a transition year. But Cal will only have 3 non-conference games next year. It'll be interesting, obviously, to see if any of the ACC matchups will end up getting thrown into that open date on September the 12th. The ACC opponents for next year, there is no date set up for these games. Obviously, those will come in time at some point. The home slate of the ACC schedule will be Clemson, Pittsburgh, Stanford, and Virginia Tech. The road matchups will be at Wake Forest, at North Carolina State, at SMU, at Syracuse, and, of course, at Tad's old alma mater of Virginia. Taddy, your thoughts on what Cal football has on tap going into the 2026 college football season?
Looking good. For a lot of improvement expected. I expected us to at least go 9-3.
I feel like they can easily go 9-3, 10-2, maybe even better. But again, a lot's going to hinge on not just the player personnel that's going to be here, but also how these players and coaches adapt to things going into the next season. Speaking of which, that will be the final subject that we will touch bases on this afternoon's show. Who are the new coaches that will be coming in to your California Golden Bears football program in 2026? Obviously, we already know that Tosh Lupoy will be the head coach for the Golden Bears starting next year. Nick Rolovich, who, of course, took over as the interim head coach after Wilcox got fired, he will return as the quarterback coach and the assistant head coach for next season. Looking like pretty much, though, it's a clearing of house and some new guys bringing in, with 3 members of the incoming staff being individuals that Tosh plucked away from the Oregon program. Jordan Somerville will be coming in as your new offensive coordinator. Keith Bonaparte. There'll be 2 Keiths from Oakland in Strawberry Canyon next year. They'll, of course, be yours truly up on Tightwad Hill. And, of course, you'll have Keith Bonaparte, who will be the running backs coach for your California Golden Bears next year. Michael Hutchins will be your defensive coordinator. Devon Brown will be your defensive backs coach, as well as the co-defensive coordinator. Zach Tinker, that's a name that should ring a bell with some of you Cal football fans. He was the quality control coach for Cal back in 2022, 2023-ish, before heading up to Oregon for a couple of years. He will now be coming back as the special teams coordinator for your California Golden Bears. Darren Daniels will be the defensive line / pass rush specialist. Connor Boyd will be in charge of coaching the safeties. And Stephen Hauga will be the tight end / run game coordinator. So, definitely a lot of changeover. We obviously, again, have Rolovich sticking around. But outside of that, then it's not kind of shocking to me on that note. It seems like, not just in college, but in pro sports as well, it seems like when you have a change in the coaching regime, a lot of these guys do end up cleaning house, bringing in their own guys. It's kind of a rarity for you to have any sort of holdover from the previous coaching regime. But I definitely have some confidence in what Tosh can bring going into next year, given the fact that he is an alumni of the program and the fact that he is part of the Tedford coaching tree of coaches. I was hoping that Bauce would have still been around to share his thoughts on that, because I know that Bauce actually does have concerns going into that. We'll have to get his thoughts on that maybe down the road in a future edition of the Bear Raid. But, Taddy, your thoughts on the coaching staff going into 2026?
Looking good. It's looking like a lot of improvement on both sides of the ball. Josh brings a lot of swag to the program, being an alumni, being a player, and also being on the Tedford's coaching staff. So, it's looking good for 2026.
Definitely looking forward to what goes down with their California Golden Bears in the 2026 season. And, of course, on all of our regularly scheduled Bear Raids that will be going down, even during the spring semester, any coaching changes to go down, any transfer portal-related stuff, any Cal football-related news that comes down during the spring semester, even though the football program doesn't play during the spring semester, we will keep you all up to date on those things on future editions of the Bear Raid. On that note, Taddy, go ahead and lead us on out of here with your final thoughts on this afternoon's special edition of the Bear Raid.
Catch yours truly and Bauce up on Tightwad, on the rugby side of Tightwad Hill on January 10th as the Cal Golden Bears take on the Santa Cruz Slugs.
Definitely note on that.
Happy New Year's to everyone out there. Holiday greetings. Go Bears.
No doubt on that, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, just because Cal football's done, that doesn't mean that we're done. We'll be on the Winter Rugby field side of Tightwad for Cal Rugby in 2026. And, of course, we also got future plans at some point to go check out Cal men's and women's basketball. And, hey, you already know by trade I'm a baseball fan, so I'll definitely be going to see some of the baseball games in 2026. As always, for the latest information pertaining to the Bear Raid, be sure to check things out at afanradio.com/the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. Follow/like us on our original social media home at facebook.com/Tightwad Hill Official. You on Twitter, X, whatever the fuck you want to call the Muskrat freaking app at this point. I personally still call it Twitter myself. Be sure to follow us on there at Tightwad Hill 23. All past editions of our show you can check out on what used to be the old A's Fan Radio YouTube channel at youtube.com/A's Fan Radio. And that is, of course, where you can catch us for the next edition of our show, which is 3 days away from now. Remember, we're currently in the stretch where we're doing 4 shows over a 2-week span. This is the second show right here between December the 22nd and January the 4th of next year. Show number 3, of course, during that 2-week stretch will be the 2025 Cal Athletics Fall Semester in Review show, which I will be hosting solo. That will go down on New Year's Eve on YouTube. My final thought, as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this Cal Fan Ran podcast, regardless if it's specials like this or our regular editions of the show. Obviously, I hope that things would have been better than they played out with Cal in 2025. Yeah, 7-6 is good. Finished above 500 for the first time in about 6 or 7 years. But, hey, I got to agree with Bauce, man. We got to start doing some stuff to step it the fuck up when it comes to things with this program, especially with the hopes that are hanging high amongst the Calgorithm going into this new era with Tosh Leapoy at the helm. Definitely expecting a lot out of the program. It'll be interesting to see what goes on with Cal football in 2026. On that note, on behalf of Tad Dellinger III, Boss Man, and, of course, Donnie and Tito, who couldn't join us today, I am your third and courteous sitting governor of Tightwad Hill, Keith Richard Salminen, signing out here from Dub 6 Studios. Y'all take care and enjoy the rest of your day. The views and opinions of our cast, our guests, and our listeners are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the University of California, the Cal Athletic Sports Program, the Cal Football Program, or any of the other sports programs that are at the University of California. Thank you all again for tuning in to this 2025 season in review of Cal Football. Be sure, of course, to join us for the semester in review show for fall for the Cal Athletic Program, and of course the final edition of this 4-show and 2-week stretch, show number 53 of the Bear Raid, which of course will go down on January the 4th of 2026. Until then, take care, stay blue, stay gold, and of course, as always, ladies and gentlemen, roll on you, Bears! Take care, fellow Tightwads, fellow Cal fans, and members of the Calgorithm. We will see you on New Year's Eve for the 2025 Fall Semester in Review Show.